Rather than get into some of the, again, controversial details of what happens when, this temple thing, I met with the chief rabbi of the Temple Mount one day early on, I think it was about 1981, when Kathy and I and our three kids moved there.
Yehuda Getz?
No, it wasn't Getz. May have been his predecessor. I'm trying to remember his name.
I met with Getz afterwards, and on a documentary I produced, he was
No,
on
that was before Getz. Anyway, I said, so what's the deal here? You know, do you expect the temple to be rebuilt? And he said, well, I know. He said, I know what you evangelicals expect. You expect Jesus to come back and he'll rebuild and to a rebuilt temple. In other words, the temple precedes the return of Christ. He said, in our case, we expect the Messiah to build a temple. Have you run into that one?
I certainly have.
Yeah.
And Yehuda Getz, who followed the rabbi, head of the Western Wall area, he made the statement that indeed, yes, we believe the Messiah is going to play a key role, but we need to be working in preparations for those things.
So when he builds a temple,
going,
we can help him out.
Absolutely. You got to have 28,000 priests to operate the temple.
Yeah.
You don't just make that happen tomorrow. They've got to be ready. You got to have 4,000 harps to be played, according to King David.
How does this impact the doctrine, certainly the preaching for decades and decades, in the 20th century at least, of the imminent return of Christ?
I think Jesus Christ made a statement. He said in Matthew 24, verse 15, it's the Olivet Discourse, 2 days before he's going to be crucified. He said, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, flee, get out of town. That's indicative of the fact there has to be a temple up there. The abomination has to take place, which Daniel 9:27 talked about. 2 Thessalonians 2:4, Paul said, Antichrist will walk into the temple, into the Holy of Holies, and desecrate it. Revelation 11:1, John the Revelator was told to build a spot for the temple. And so all of that happens in this, which I look at as this 7-year tribulation period that is described in Daniel and Ezekiel and Revelation and other locations in the Bible. That is going to be taking place. And as I understand it, we, according to what Jesus said to the 7 churches, one of the churches, the Church of Philadelphia, he said, I'm going to take you Christians out of that. This is for my time to bring the Jewish people to me. I offered them the kingdom when my son came. That's Matthew. That's the book of Matthew, all the way up to chapter 16. They rejected it. I didn't do away with them. I didn't negate my promises. I just set it on the shelf for a while. Now, these are the things that are going to happen. But listen, that judgment is not for you. I'm going to take you out. And he said to the church at Philadelphia, I will keep you from. You look at the grammar in the Greek, it's not take out of, keep you from that time to come. And in Revelation 4:1, John is taken from the earth into the heavenlies, depicting that time. Jesus Christ in the upper room before he's crucified, what did he say? Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. Now listen, if it were not so, I have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. Now listen, and if I go, I shall come again and receive you unto myself. That's not the coming back. Being received unto Jesus is that quote, quote, rapture, which he was referring to. And I think that as I look at it, that's the blessed hope that I have. The Apostle Paul told Titus, lay aside ungodliness and worldly lust. Live soberly, godly, and righteously. I can almost hear Titus say, how do you lay aside that which is wrong? How do you live that which is right? He said, looking for the blessed hope and the glorious appearing. I think that's a part of understanding the scripture that gives me hope to know that I'm not going to go through that time. But again, it gives me the assurance that he's true to his promises to the Jewish people. He set aside a segment of 7 years to fulfill all those promises to the Jewish people and then set up his kingdom. You look at Ezekiel 40 to 46, 202 verses, detailed information about that temple that Jesus, Messiah, will build. They're right. He will build it. You can never see what he describes in that detailed information in the tabernacle, the first temple, or the second temple. It's this Messiah's temple. Zechariah 6:12, he will come and rebuild that temple and rule and reign. Davidic covenant, 2 Samuel chapter 7, he promised King David, I'm going to do it. Now, either that's all true, or let's throw that out and live the way we think we ought to live.
What this tells you, friends, is that if you call yourself a believer, a follower of Christ, you have a worldview.
Yes.
You have a worldview. It's not just about what Jesus has done for you, as wonderful as that is. It has to do with a much bigger unfolding picture. It has to do with history, destiny. It has to do with that which awaits all mankind. There is an eternal dimension that is right there at the door. And what Jimmy's talking about here impacts you, impacts me, impacts all of us who claim to follow Christ. You have entered into a relationship with the King of Kings.
Yes.
And there is a huge story yet to unfold. This book will help you at least understand some of the prep for that huge story. Israel Under Fire, the prophetic chain of events that threatens the Middle East. Jimmy DeYoung is a co-author. This is the third day of a special offer. We will not be offering it tomorrow. So if you want it, you got to call now. Here's where you call, 1-800-265-3100. Or log on to crossroads.ca. You can ask for it there and make a secure online donation. And friends, your best ministry gift is what we need. This is the time for us to really kick off our new fiscal year with great energy and confidence. Your support is key to this ministry. It's been on air now almost 35 years, live every day, thanks to your faithfulness, and I know that you won't let us down. Thanks, Jimmy DeYoung.
Thank you, sir. Always a joy to be here.
Been a pleasure.